All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Blue Podcast. This is the Red, White, and Blue show with me, Joe. I'm joined today by Connor and Josh. How are you guys doing?
Doing all right. It's early, as always.
It's always early for Connor. And you, Josh. I know we don't. Josh is he's going to be sort of in and out on the podcast. We're glad to have him back today, filling in. We haven't got Billy and Jack. How are you doing? How are you feeling?
I'm doing very well. They do call me the NFL expert from the UK. Over here in this Blue podcast. So I'm not the NFL expert head of far, but football. American football is back on Sunday. Actually tomorrow, but technically back
Yeah.
on Sunday. You all know it for being on Sundays, and I'm incredibly hyped for it. So thank you very much for having me.
Yeah. No, I think we're all looking forward to it. Admittedly, as excited as I am, I don't know if I can stay up all the way on Thursday night, Friday morning, but I might give it a go. Before we get started
Feel my pain.
Yeah. Before we get started in the actual podcast, we are trying to hit 1,000 subscribers by New Year's Day. So if you know anyone who'd enjoy watching or listening to the podcast, please do share it. And also, don't forget to check out our new and improved merch. We're going to start this week with we're talking about sort of early predictions, MVPs, rookies, etc. We're going to start with the MVP. So, Connor, do you have an early MVP prediction for us?
Mine's kind of this is my one pick during this thing where I'm kind of being a little bit of a pansy and going with the easy way out, but I picked Pat Mahomes.
Fair enough.
It's Pat Mahomes.
Yeah, it just has to be. But I think a lot of people would have said that going into this season, and you end up with Aaron Rodgers. So, what do you see in him this season? Is it coming off the back of a Super Bowl loss or a bit?
Yeah, I think he's just such a good player, and I've talked. I think Josh and I were the ones who talked about just like if he continues his form like this for another 5 years, he's first ballot Hall of Famer, without a doubt in my mind. So, for me, especially coming off the back of a Super Bowl loss, he's going to be really upset. He's going to be really pissed off. I'm not sure if the Chiefs did a ton to actually help that offensive line, but he's going to be coming back for kind of a revenge tour to try and win this year. So I think he's going to blow up for at least 4,000 yards and really make his case.
It's weird thinking about the offensive line. Like, I'm not certain for sure. I haven't looked at it recently, but I think they ended up basically trading out a load of offensive linemen and replacing them with very similar offensive linemen. That's kind of why it didn't get very much coverage, because it wasn't like they completely bolstered it. They sort of just filled in the gaps somewhat.
They just made new players same stuff.
Yeah, so we'll have to see how it works out. Obviously, the majority of the regular season, it was only really in the Super Bowl and the AFC Championship that we noticed the lack of O-line. So, the majority of the regular season, I imagine if they've got a similar O-line to last year, they'll be absolutely fine. Are you the same, Josh? Are you on the Pat Mahomes route, or do you have a different MVP?
No, I do have a different one. I'm going to go with a guy who always starts it off as an MVP, but unfortunately falls off. Well, I wouldn't say falls off, but I think the lack of protection in this team affects him. Russell Wilson. But funny, I've done a lot of research on the new offensive coordinator, Sean Payton. He was the passing game coordinator at the LA Rams last year. See what they've tried to do in preseason. Now, the Seahawks were one of the teams that didn't decide to play any of their starters in preseason, so it was hard to tell. But the scheme looked really, really good, and it was a very last year they started off really, really well. But Brian Schottenheimer, who obviously got sacked in the end, he was horrifically bad. They were doing 4 verticals and a 4-from-1 and stuff like that. And one thing about Russell Wilson and the Seahawks is, like, you talk about protection. He has never had a protection at the Seahawks. It's one of the areas the Seahawks haven't really prioritized. They have strengthened it this season. They've added 2 new people to it. They've added two new people to the O-line. They're looking strong. I just think Russell Wilson and the Seahawks in general are going to have a really, really good year.
Well, I think it's difficult because I think we say that I've probably been saying it for the last 6 years, like they're going to have a good season.
You're talking to a Seahawks fan, so that's going to be he's going to be pretty happy to hear that you're saying this QB is going to be
me.
No, that's Billy.
Oh, yeah, Billy. Yeah,
Billy's going to be listening to this podcast and going, they said Russell Wilson. Please, can that be true?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think maybe Billy has heard what we were doing and sort of just nudged Josh and was like, "Oh, we need Russell Wilson. We need
Can you give us something here?"
Yeah, someone needs to mention the Seahawks. But I think, yeah, as I say, it's a tough one with the Seahawks because I feel like ever since the Super Bowl, the infamous Marshawn Lynch Super Bowl goal line, it's sort of been they've been almost there and they haven't
I,
quite reached it. It's almost that infamous story of they were so close and they'll never reach that point again. But I mean, we have to sort of see.
other thing I'll say about like, is I think Conor, you'll probably get a reference more than probably anyone else, but they should have ran the ball.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, easily. That was the stupidest decision I've ever seen.
I like how we talk about Russell Wilson. We just instantly segue into sort of roasting Pete Carroll and the Seahawks for decision making in Super Bowls. But yeah, no, it's good. To be honest, I was going into this MVP thing thinking, oh, I hope they don't both say Pat Mahomes because we don't have much to talk about. But it's nice we've all actually gone for different MVPs. I mean, I agree with Conor in that probably a lot of people's first guess is Pat Mahomes, but I've gone with probably what's sort of the standard ulterior thought to that, which is Josh Allen. Which, although I think it's one of those ones where a lot of people have been watching him last season and they want to be a bit sort of out there with their pick. They don't just want to say Lamar Jackson, Pat Mahomes, Tom Brady sort of thing, Aaron Rodgers. So they go for Josh Allen because he's new, he's upcoming, he's exciting, he can jump over Anthony Barr. So it's.
I just hope that
I'm
doesn't
excited for him.
happen.
Yeah.
I just don't want that to happen because I'm a Dolphins fan, and that means that he's just absolutely gone off.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. But I don't know. I like the Bills. I like Josh Allen. I think he's got more to prove. He's got even more to prove than he has in the last few years. And so I'm excited to watch him. And I do hope he is a contender for MVP. Whether he gets there is like it's obviously it's up to the season. But I think he's a pretty big contender or a notable early pick. If we go on from MVPs, from experienced players who we all expect to do well this season, to players we're a bit more unsure about, and we start talking about the rookies of the year. Josh, do you have a rookie of the year for us at this early stage?
I do. It could be seen as a tiny bit boring, but I am going to go with Justin Fields, also the new Bears quarterback. I do like Justin Fields. I know Connor's obviously first out there laughing, but I do really, really like the look of Justin Fields this year. He seems to be the most promising quarterback out of all of them out of the draft. Maybe Jones, the new Patriots one. He looks like he could be decent. But now for me, I do like that. I like the look of Justin Fields a lot, and I don't know why. It's one of my gut feelings that he's going to be the rookie of the year.
Mm-hmm. The only thing with Justin Fields, it was the exact same when I was deciding my rookie. The same thing I had with Justin Fields, as I said, have with Trey Lance. I'm not sure whether I don't know if the Bears have confirmed. I was just trying to Google it then, whether they've actually confirmed whether he'll start over Andy Dalton. Because I don't know.
Week 1 it'll be Dalton, but week 2 and on, I think that it'll be Fields as well. Because I know they've confirmed. I think Dalton week 1.
Yeah, because that's what I was thinking. Because when I was trying to decide my rookie of the year, I wanted to go. My instant thought was I wanted to go Trey Lance, sort of like another one of the California. I wanted to go sort of similar to Justin Herbert's first season. I wanted to see the same thing for Trey Lance in the 49ers this season. And I thought, although I don't think the 49ers are as strong this year as they've been in previous years, I think I'd really like to see him do well. But then I had a look up and they've decided to stop Garoppolo. So I think we'll have to wait a few more weeks to see Trey Lance. So in the end, I ended up going again with another QB. I think, although it's not always QB's rookie of the year, we've had such a strong QB class this year. I did the other one Josh mentioned. I went for Mac Jones because I think if the whole Brady Belichick era was a bit 50, it wasn't just Brady being fantastic. Belichick does still have some tricks up his sleeve, and he does still have the coaching ability. I think he's got a lot in store for Mac Jones and can teach him a lot. And he could show out this season. I think, although I'm not too sure about the Patriots team this year. Like it doesn't when it was Brady and Gronk and everyone, you were just solid. You didn't really have to think too much about the team. You just thought of it as a solid team. But nowadays it seems slightly more shaky to me. But either way, I still think I can't see past Mac Jones doing well in New England. I think although they had a bit of a tough year with Cam Newton being a bit up and down, I think with Mac Jones they've got a solid base QB, field general type guy. What are you thinking? Rookie of the year, Conor?
Actually, I was laughing not because I thought it was stupid, but because I agree. I have the same guy. Dalton has been confirmed as the Week 1 starter by Nagy, the head coach of the Bears, for Week 1. But for me, I see this as a protection of Fields more than actually trusting in Dalton. If you look at that Bears schedule, the Bears schedule is very interesting because they start off Week 1 against the Rams, which is a solid team. But then Week 2, they go against the Bengals. So who would you rather start your rookie quarterback at? Would you rather start in Week 1 against the Rams? Would you start in Week 2 against the worst team in the NFL and the Bengals?
Yeah.
So I think this is more bringing Fields in Week 2, and this gives him confidence beating down on the Bengals to then go on and play the Browns and go on and play the Bears and playing the Raiders. They don't really have a super big team test until I'm thinking October when they go Packers, Buccaneers back-to-back weeks. But you want him to build up that confidence going in, and you don't want to shatter his confidence by having him start against the Rams, which have a very good defense like Aaron Donald, of course, and having him come out bad. But Justin Fields, I just think, is easily going to be the rookie of the year in the end. They've picked up and I was talking to you guys kind of a little bit about this. I have his actual name now. I watched this video last night on this offensive lineman who was one of the best and most underrated linemen coming out of the draft, who actually was picked up in the second round by the Bears, outside tackle named Tevin Jenkins out of Oklahoma State, who, if you look up the film, and I'll send into the group chat, I'll send the link to the video I watched. If you look at the film on this guy, he's an absolutely unreal offensive tackle. And I think adding on a big piece onto that offensive line who's already being touted to start immediately and kind of having that guy to block for Fields, I think will just make Fields even better and give him more of a chance to actually, do what he needs to do to help this Bears team win, and hopefully, and I think eventually will help him win this Rookie of the Year.
It's interesting what you say about him sort of not wanting him to face a difficult opponent sort of too early, because when you talk about they haven't got a difficult spell until October, and then they've got the Buccaneers, Packers back to back. In that sort of thing, you really don't want a QB going in cold into that. You wouldn't really. I think you're right. If Fields starts Week 1, he has a tough time against the Rams. He then goes on, although he's against easier opponents, maybe he doesn't show out as much because he's a bit more tentative after having such a tough game against the Rams. He goes in cold against the Buccaneers and the Packers, two not only great teams but also very solid defenses. I think it would be really like a bit of too much of a test too early on. Whilst I think you're right, if he has weeks 2, 3, 4, or however many to sort of build up his confidence and go in a bit more like he can beat any team in the NFL, it would be interesting. So I can see what you mean, but it's still on the flip side to that. If you're a hotshot QB coming out of college, you get into your first game and you've been learning through the preseason, you've had training camps and whatnot, and then the coach says like you don't get to come out the starting blocks. You have to watch from the bench for a week. Whether that sort of hits your confidence, or, to be honest, if you're an elite athlete at that level, I think maybe he just understands. He just sees Matt Nate.
I think there was a conversation. I think they brought in Dalton and Fields into the same room with the coach, and they kind of explain the situation of what they're thinking of trying to do. And the thing is these people are professionals, like you said. You're at this level, you have to be professional. You're not going to start immediately just because you were a first-round pick sometimes, Some people are first-round picks, and they don't start off the blocks. Look at Tua last year for the Dolphins. Did not start.
Lamar Jackson, too. Lamar Jackson was a first-round pick, and he didn't start until Joe Flacco picked up a serious injury, and look how that turned out.
Yeah, so, you look at you look at Lamar Jackson ended up being MVP. Didn't even start as a first-round pick his first year. So, especially because Dalton's a player who's got this wealth of experience of being a top quarterback for a long time with that Bengals team until they ended up being just really, really bad. But for a while, he was a very good quarterback. So it's not like he's being, it's not like it's some bum quarterback it's the same thing with Tua. I think it's the same kind of thing with Tua Tagovailoa last year with the Dolphins. They're starting that veteran to get the game going, and then they'll ease in the rookie as time goes on.
Well, do you not think having no preseason last year played a big part in Tua not starting?
I think it did, but I think it also was kind of Ryan Fitzpatrick is one of those QBs where he's kind of just like the middle of the road solid QB, and so we kind of wanted to ease Tua in. So, and especially because he had the injury, he's coming off an injury as well last year.
Well, yeah, I think it's a tough one because then you could say the same thing about sort of the Jaguars. Although they've got Trevor Lawrence, who's like touted up to be one of the best QBs to come out of college in a while. They still had on until they traded him away. I don't think we ever worked out, but whether it was for cap space or a bit of just an extra pick, they traded away Gardner Minshew, who they were perfectly comfortable with. It was a bit erratic, but if they were to do why, you could argue why if they can't have that much less knowledge, why couldn't Jacksonville have started given Minshew 1 or 2 weeks into the season and sort of dips Trevor Lawrence in rather than starting in week 1? So it's although I do agree, coming out of college, Trevor Lawrence is a much higher rated QB than Justin Fields is. Why do they get such a different treatment? Is it all down to the coaches or?
So it's just on that comment you've made there. I actually find it incredible that Gardner Minshew got traded to the Eagles because obviously Justin, what's his name? Hurts isn't it? Hurts isn't it? Hurts is the starting quarterback for the Eagles this year. Well, at least barring a week 1, and they had Joe Flacco as the backup. Flacco, when he played for the Jets last year, did really, really well. And then he had a solid preseason. Then they went and got Gardner Minshew for a trade for players. I find that I don't know. Maybe there's potential cap space or something. Maybe something to do with it. But it was a really weird trade.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I suppose we'll have to we'll see pretty early on because I mean, if off the top of my head, I can't immediately see Trevor Lawrence sort of going into the game and being sort of a deer in headlights. I mean, he's been a superstar in college at Clemson. He had something crazy winning streak.
But being a superstar in college does not mean you're going to be a superstar in the NFL. We've seen plenty of busts.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, although sometimes you get sort of a player that has they have a really good sort of first few weeks, and then all of a sudden we see them drop off. Admittedly, sometimes it's due to injuries. Like off the top of my head, I'm thinking Trubisky, I'm thinking Carson Wentz. I'm thinking players that started straight away. They did hit the ground running. They had a great season. I mean, Carson Wentz took the Eagles to the playoffs, handed over, and then they ultimately won a Super Bowl. But since then, injuries and other things. I mean, Mitch Trubisky is probably the better example because he wasn't plagued by injuries. But I mean, there are cases of where a QB does come in, he does really well, but ultimately it's still don't shine. So I mean, I suppose it can work either way, and it's down to the coaching staff onto looking at the schedule and deciding how early they want to introduce their QB. Yeah. Anyway, moving on from rookies, I think there's a lot. I think rookies will be the hottest contended one, considering we're all giving it. And I think if we'd have asked Billy, he might have given a diff one, probably a Seahawks rookie or something. So if we move on now to comeback player of the year, I'll start us off with this one because when I think of comeback player of the years, two very similar players in the NFL instantly spring to mind, and I could barely split them up in my head. But I ended up going. I won't tell you who the other one is because I imagine one of you two might have picked the other one. But I've gone for Saquon Barkley, who I think is basically coming out of college in his first year or so, sort of totted up to be sort of Barry Sanders reincarnated sort of player, sort of run it, can stop Duke on a dime.
He was
strong runner.
Great his first year.
Yeah, so that's why I really, really hope. I think Daniel Jones is building up in confidence. I think the New York Giants could do well, and I think Saquon Barkley can lead their line, and I really, really hope he does. He's such a powerful runner. He's explosive. He looks sort of like Zeke did when Dak and Zeke were going off for the Cowboys a few years ago, and I think he looks even better than that was. And I think among other than fantasy owners who had him, I think a lot more than just fantasy owners who had him were very sad when he did get his injury because it meant we got a year of not seeing him go off like we thought he would. So I'm really hoping he has a huge season this year, but we'll just have to wait and see. So I think, having said Saquon, I think you guys can probably guess who the other comeback player of the year I'm thinking of is. But Connor, do you have anyone you want to throw in the hat?
I have Saquon as well.
Oh, okay.
He was. Speaking of fantasy, he was my fantasy running back last year. He was my first round pick last year. I hated to see him go down week 1. Not only, like you said, because he was my fantasy running back, but because he's just such a great player. You know, I like to watch players, especially when they're not in my division. When there's a really good player, I love being able to watch them week in and week out and not have to, root against them because, they're playing for a team that I don't really need to worry about because they're not my division. So it was really sad to see him go down. I just think coming back this year, I know he's not starting week 1. I don't think he'll be starting to start the year, but I think he will easily win comeback player of the year. I'm excited to see him back on that field again.
Josh, what about you? I'm hoping that you've got this other player. Otherwise, I'm going to have to reveal them myself. But who do you have to come back?
No, I've got the same as you see. I've got
Oh,
Barkley.
no!
I think I like Barkley a lot. I thought Barkley was a really, really good running back. And you look at the Giants last year. You think about, was it Devon Freeman? He came in to replace him, and he was an utter failure. He was awfully bad for the Giants. We were actually close to signing him myself, but no, Saquon Barkley definitely. I think maybe Dak Prescott probably could be one too. He is. I do. You guys correct me, but I do think he's starting tomorrow night, doesn't he, against the Bucks? He's going to be throwing straight. He is going to be throwing straight in there. He probably could be one too, but nah, I think Barkley's going to rip up the league this year.
Well, in which case, I'm very surprised because I thought I was going to be the different one going for Saquon. I thought Christian McCaffrey was going to be the outright winner of that one. I think he dabbled. He had a couple games at the end of last season, so he's not totally out. But I think because he was plagued by injuries, he was everyone's favorite. He was number one pick in almost every fantasy league, and he's probably the exact same this year. I think he's a little bit overshadowed now by the fact that Derrick Henry has possibly taken his spot as the number one sort of go-to running back in the NFL. But I think it's another one because I also think that the Panthers are a bit of sort of an underdog team this year. So I think coming in with Christian McCaffrey coming back in, just picked up Sam Darnold, Robbie Anderson, is it?
Robbie Anderson coming over from the Jets as well.
It's a big team, and I think although he did another running back disappointment, I mean it wasn't quite as sort of disastrous as Saquon, but still out for most of the season last year. That he's a running back that everyone knows has incredible ability. Different kind of running back to Saquon, I'd say.
Well, maybe an interesting week 1 for both players, because the Jets the Panthers have the Jets, which I think is kind of funny. Sam Darnold going back to play his old team.
Yeah,
and then week 1 you have the Giants against the Broncos, so it's two very kind of the same level teams going against each other in week 1 for both those games. I think it's going to be fun. But I just think Saquon's just a little bit better.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, ability-wise, I think so far Saquon's had the better sort of time in the NFL. But yeah, it's difficult. It's difficult to say. But I think I would agree Saquon as well. So because mine relates quite quickly, I'll leave it for a moment because otherwise we'll just keep talking about the same thing. But if we go on to move to talk about best trades and free agency signings over the summer, whoever we think who's going to be our best player in a new uniform this year. If I start over with you, Conor, is there anyone you've got in mind?
Mine kind of just is on the spot, so I'm probably wrong. But this is just a player who's been so good for so long, and he's gone to a new team finally after years and years, and his whole career pretty much being stuck with one team.
Can I take a guess? You're going to say Mark Stafford, aren't you?
I actually am not.
No.
Oh.
My player who I think really just is going to be a big boost to this team, even though they've already got options at his spot that are really, really good. I think he's going to be a huge impact player. It's going to be Julio Jones for the Titans.
I don't think that was too out there. I don't
think it's out, but there, like you said, there are players that are you can look at Jared Goff or Stafford going to different teams and being like, oh, that's a big thing. But for me, just Julio Jones adds another threat to that Titans offense. It's already very strong. Tannehill, who is shite for the Dolphins all his entire career with us, has had this renaissance and become very good for them. Derrick Henry's in the backfield. A.J. Brown, I think is his name, who they've got out there on the wing. And now they've added Julio Jones on the other side.
Yeah.
I think that's just a deadly wide receiver duo, and I think it's a great job by the Titans to go out, see a need, fill a need, and get ready to go. And I think he's going to have a huge impact for the team.
The only thing thinking about the Titans, you're running through their receiving core there, and I instantly thought last year they had, or maybe it was the year before, they had Jalen Smith. Am I right? The tight end who was who had a pretty strong year for them. I'm just trying to think. I'm pretty sure he's gone elsewhere now, Patriots or somewhere like that. So I was trying to think who their tight end is, but can't think of it off the top of my head. But yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think it's not necessarily he'll go in and overshadow AJ Brown. I think Tannehill's the sort of smart field general type quarterback who'll know to use both of them and use their strengths
The tight
equally.
end is Josh Swain.
Oh, right. Is
Swain.
he ex-Cowboys? Is he?
I could swear he's an ex-Cowboy. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it's a good choice. I'm sure. I mean, I'd personally that was the one when you said it's off the top of your head. It might not be correct, to be honest. That's the one I thought most people would instantly go to, sort of the big early signing of the summer. But yeah, I'm sure. I mean, it's an exciting one. We'll have to see. Josh, do you have a best trade? I mean, you've already shown your hand by suggesting Matt Stafford and Jared Goff or whoever you said. So
yeah, I kind of did give away. Mine is to Mark Stafford. The Rams defense this year is, it's even stronger than what it was last year, which is great. But the one thing that the Rams have lacked is probably a game difference in quarterback. I thought Jared Goff last year, especially towards the end of the season, was really, really bad. And his like he was so limited to what he could do. There was a lot of play actions. There was a lot of very short passes, a lot of screens. He just wasn't comfortable playing a game. I think Mark Stafford, with the experience he brings, the leadership he brings, he's got Woods and Cup, as his wide receiver core. He's got decent tight ends. They'll have good protection. The Rams do have good protection, and they have a really good running game. So I think Mark Stafford really could make the difference to this Rams team. This Rams team with that defense could absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, go on a Super Bowl run. I think Mark Stafford pushes them more in that direction than what they would have been with Jared Goff. So, yes, for me it would be Mark Stafford. Which I kind of did give it away, but that's just life.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, it's interesting thinking about. Am I right in thinking that Sony Michelle or Michael has just moved over to the Rams? Am I right in thinking that? I'll double check. But I
Yeah,
think,
he has, because I have him on my fantasy team.
Yeah. And what's weird was thinking about the Rams is I was looking at Todd Gurley. I think he's a free agent this year, and they picked up or has he just been picked up?
No, Todd Gurley is currently a free agent. He did have a tryout with the Ravens yesterday in practice, but we have opted to go for Le'Veon Bell over him. So, but he is a free agent. But there's a massive. Apparently, from what I understand, is he has a really, really, really bad knee problem, and that's why teams aren't picking him up.
Yeah, because that's what I was thinking. I thought they picked up Sonny Michel. They've got Matt Stafford in at QB. What they could really do is someone to partner Sonny Michel, and who better? Who's a free agent? He's familiar with the team. Why doesn't he? Even if he does risk his knee, how much cap space? If they've got the cap space, why not pick him up? Give him his old job back or half a job back.
The thing that the Rams really, I feel bad for the Rams is obviously Cam Akers tearing his ACL. Really, really early on in training camp, that was a big blow to them. And I think they've got a really good running back core. I think the issue with Gurley is his knee. He has seems like there's a big.
If you have a bad knee as a running back, it's a really hard thing to get past.
Oh.
It's not the sort of thing. Well, I don't know. I mean, personally, I haven't injured my knee before, so I'm not too familiar with it. But it's obviously it's hurt so many running backs in the past, and I'm sure it's a big red flag when you're on your scouting report. So it's a bit unfortunate. But yeah, when you're going back to talking about the Rams overall, and in particular Matt Stafford, I think you've got a good pick there. I think that was a big trade. I think it was quite early on one
of the first trades. Yeah. That showed how desperate the Rams wanted to get Jared Goff out of LA. I don't think he just didn't sit the scheme at all. We all know Sean McVay is a very creative magician, and they wanted to get rid of him.
Jared Goff would have been, when I was talking earlier about QBs that started straight out of college and then sort of dipped off. I'm trying to thinking now, Jared Goff would have been a fantastic example. Made it to the Super Bowl and sort of really that was his peak, and he's now sort of been bobbling along since then. So. Which I have thought of that at the time, but the reason I sent it over to Conor and then Josh first is I didn't want to talk about the Panthers too much in one go. But my best trade free agency signing was Sam Darnold. I think he could have. I remember seeing him preseason of his rookie year. I remember he looked fantastic. He had a bit of he could roll out the pocket. He was throwing side arm passes. He looked confident. He looked like a QB that wanted to play in the NFL, was ready to play in the NFL. Then he got ill with what was it, mono, and then can't remember if he got another injury after that. And he never, I don't think, reached his peak at the Jets. I think he plateaued a little bit. I think he was unhappy. I think he was a bit all over the place. He's got a fresh start with the Panthers. He's brought Robbie Anderson over, who was his number one receiver. He's got a great returner. He's got obviously Christian McCaffrey coming back. I think Sam Darnold could have a really good. Yeah, I think it could be another example of Tanner, like Conor was talking about with Tannehill, where he didn't have such a great time with his first team, but he's coming. You okay, Josh?
Yeah, sorry, my sister was coming in trying to disrupt things.
Oh, she's probably breaking the news that Chelsea's been fined.
Chelsea's been fined. Chelsea always get fined. That doesn't surprise me.
Chelsea's been fined $25,000 for the players' conduct after the draw against Liverpool.
Oh yeah, that's unsurprising.
Yeah, but anyway, yeah. So I put me off track. Panthers all fine. I think we've all got different trades, but obviously I think that's the hardest one. So many different trades, so many players that have had a bit of a tough time at their previous teams, so it's difficult to pick out which one. So I think that's why we've all gone different. I think we'll go back to Josh now because we're going to move away from individual players and season-long prediction, and we're going to talk about this upcoming weekend, which we all said we're excited for. And we're going to start with what we think is going to be in each of our game of the week. So this can be highest scoring or closest, biggest for each program this early on. Who have you got, Josh, for your game of the week? If you've got the fixture.
I'm gonna go with a bit of a surprise. I've actually got the Browns and the Chiefs as my game of the week. The Browns this year do look incredibly strong, compared to the team that obviously went the season without a whole win, and then they started off well under Freddie Kitchens, and then that ended up in a disaster. Last year they played really, and then they have strengthened really, really well. Seems like Kevin Stefanski, obviously their second-year head coach, has maybe find the key to actually how to use Baker Mayfield correctly. So I feel like the Browns and the Chiefs are going to be a really, really good game. It's going to be an hour ahead. I think the Chiefs team is going to be raring to go. I think the Browns have a lot to prove. When I looked down the fixture list, I was like, I like the look of this game. This is, I believe, a 25 past 9 kickoff, and I start at work at 6 o'clock in the morning. So I'm willing to die at work to watch this game because I'd have a really good feel about it. So I look forward to that game. It's definitely for me my game of the week and the one to watch.
Interesting, because that's one. Although I agree with you, if the Browns can get a result there, that's fantastic, and it would be devastating for the Chiefs to lose out first game of the season when we all expect them to come out raring. But that's why I was going to say that was one of the contenders. It wasn't the one I chose in the end, but that was one of the ones I was considering for upset. I was also thinking the Browns could upset the Chiefs this week. What about you, Conor? Have you got a game of the week?
And by the way, I just love this, hearing you guys going, oh, it's 9 p.m. for me, because for me, it's 1:30 in the afternoon for me, that game. Yeah. So
it's easy casual days. Sunday afternoon viewing for you.
It's casual Sunday stroll while I listen to that game. My game is a game I don't think anybody will have predicted to be a game of the week. I think I'm probably going to end up being wrong on this being the game of the week. I've picked the Eagles-Falcons.
Mm-hmm. The Bird Derby.
And I'll say it's the first Sunday game it's the first game on Sunday. And the reason I pick it is because it's two very bad teams with a lot of question marks on how their season's going to go. I mean, you have the Eagles on one hand where, big question marks at quarterback. Is it going to be Jalen Hurts? They've just brought in, like we said, Minshew has been brought in. A team that's very much so predicted to be one of the not as good teams in the league this year. And then you got the Falcons on the other side who were not very good last year. Matt Ryan, how is he going to do? I think it's going to be a very close game. I think this is going to be decided by 3 points. Yeah. And that's why it's going to be the game of the week.
No, for the Falcons. No Julio, Calvin Ridley now QB wide receiver one, first primary receiver, and Kyle Pitts in at tight end. So interesting. I think one of the most question marks in the whole league are the Falcons, because it's going to, although only a few players have changed, it's going to be a completely different dynamic within the team. I think. I don't think it's going to be playing the same way we've seen them play in the past. So, in terms of games to watch, I think Eagles Falcons is a good pick. But in terms of it being close, or in terms of it being close, high scoring, or this being important for either teams, because personally at this early stage, I don't really see either of those teams being playoff or Super Bowl contenders. So, but in terms of a game with question marks and interesting for the league, I can see why you choose it. My game, basically, I went off the way I think a lot of people will have seen it, rather than delving too deep. And I went for two. I wanted two big names, early season matchup, can either good for their programs or bad. And I was stuck between two games. I was stuck between the Packers Saints and Steelers Bills. And in the end, I went for Steelers Bills because I think with Packers Saints, I think the Packers won't have trouble winning that game. I think the Saints, although their defense is pretty unchanged. I think Drew Brees is gone. They've got Jameis Winston in at QB. I think it's going to be. I don't think the Packers are going to, like as I say, have too much trouble. But I think the Saints are a bit of a fight. I don't think the Packers will blow them out. But I think the Saints are going to have one of those seasons where it's a bit of a shaky one before you start a rebuild. So I think although Drew Brees, although I wouldn't say didn't make the team, they have Alvin Kamara, they have other talent within the team. I think with Michael Thomas questionable, or perhaps I think he's physically unable to perform, Drew Brees retired, I think that's going to struggle. So in the end, I went for Steelers Bills because they're two teams that I think could, although maybe not, well, maybe Bills are, but Steelers sort of an underdog for Super Bowl sort of championship contention this year. I think that's a huge game straight off the bat, because if either one of those teams, both teams are pretty highly regarded. If either one of them gets loses or even gets blown out by the other, I think if either of them, I think it would be the Steelers that could suffer quite a heavy loss to the Bills. It would change everyone's view of them for the rest of the season. So that's why I thought for this, it was my game of the week. Do you guys agree with me, or do you see?
That's a perfectly fair shot. I think the Steelers this year, the Steelers defense is particularly good, but the big question is the offense. They struggled massively last year on the running game. They got, I think, a guy called Harrison, I think, from the draft, and he'll massively improve them. It is really, for me, just the big question mark is the offense. But if their offense, is on it, I honestly think they could beat the Bills, which I don't have. I have the Bills winning that one, but I do think it is. I think it's a perfectly fair shot. It's the same as the Steelers, as the Browns and the Chiefs. It's one of those things that could go either way.
Yeah, fair enough. So if we're going from games which you think going either way to games where we think perhaps the lower team could pull one out of the bag here, we're going to talk about upsets. Do you have a I know I spoke about the Browns Chiefs earlier potentially being upset. Do you have a separate upset for us, Josh?
I have to check. Give me a second. I need to actually check the because I'm not entirely too sure. So we look.
Also, if either of you say the Cowboys beating the Buccaneers, I might have to end the podcast.
You took the words right out of my mouth.
I'm having a look here. I'm not going to say this is going to be. Okay, I don't think this is going to be an upset as such. So I'm looking here. A lot of games are quite evenly based. I'm not going to go for one that's more of an upset. I'm going to go for one that I think not a lot of people have a prediction. I'm actually going to say the Dolphins to beat the Patriots week 1. Because a lot of people, I know the odds are in the Patriots' favor. I know a lot of people are saying the Dolphins team, they haven't improved the O-line. Tua is not looking too convincing. The biggest some question marks over the run game and just the overall offensive style of this team. But I do actually think that the Dolphins will beat the Patriots week 1. They're at home. Ryan for now will have this team. We'll have this throw it out. And this Patriots team, it's a team that's it's trying to find its identity. getting rid of Cam Newton for me was probably the wrong decision. I think their backup was a guy called Brian Hoyer. I think you call him as the back to the Patriots. He's been there ever since Brady was there. The guy barely played. I feel like this Patriots team is kind of in transition, and I feel like I think the Dolphins, who I believe lost this game quite badly last season, when they played the Patriots for the first time, I feel like they're going to get sweet revenge and beat New England on Sunday.
Support. I never get any of that.
It's difficult, that game, because I wouldn't say it's one where I could really predict. It's one of those ones where I sort of feel like if someone told me to predict a winner, I'd flip a coin, because in fairness, both teams, I don't know too much about this season. I think they've both made some pretty big changes. Mac Jones coming in, we don't know a lot about Tua. So I think it's one of those ones where if someone said, but you win £100,000 if you predict the winner, I'd stand there sort of like this for like hours on end thinking, who am I going to pick? Because there's not one I would favor over the other. So it's a difficult one for me personally. Do you have an upset for us, Conor?
Yeah, mine's kind of a more, I think, surprising one. I've picked the Jaguars to upset the Texans week 1.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Texans are technically the better team. You look at a team with Deshaun Watson, who they have, and
they haven't said of Deshaun Watson's playing all yet. He's very much up in the air.
Yeah, and actually, I might be stupid here because the spread pick is Jacksonville. So give me a second. I might have to pick a new.
Well, you picked the upset as a winner.
I've picked an oops here. I've had an oops here.
Tyrod Taylor starting for the Texans.
Yeah, no, the Raiders to beat the Ravens. No, I'm just messing with Josh knows that I'm picking the Ravens. Actually, yeah, no, my second pick was the Dolphins Patriots. I'm a little biased.
Yeah.
Because I am a Dolphins fan. But because of that, I think I also have a bit of a more of an in-look to the team and how we kind of are working. Tua, I know, is a question mark, but we've got a lot of good talent. Devontae Parker, Waddle on the 2 wide receiver spots. Gesicki at tight end, who's been great. Defensively, we have Xavier Howard, who's coming off being the best cornerback in the entire, the best defensive back in the entire league last year, 10 picks, led the league in interceptions last year. We picked up just our free agent, our not free agent class, but our draft class for the Dolphins was so good this year. We picked up Jalen Waddle, and then of course it was so many players we picked up this year. We picked up Jalen Waddle, which is huge. We picked up Jalen Phillips with the 18th pick, who is a huge D rusher, who's a D end actually out of the University of Miami. So he's staying home in Miami to come play for us. And he was one of the best. He was the best defensive end coming out of the draft this year, and we got him at 18 because of slight injury problems. We picked up another safety. We picked up multiple O-linemen, and we picked up a tight end who I think is very solid as well. I just think this was a very, very good year on offseason for the Dolphins that really improved this team, and I think we're going to surprise a lot of people by making the playoffs, and I think that'll start with beating the Patriots, our division rivals, week 1.
It must be tough when you're talking about your own team to pick them as an upset, because you're basically calling them the weaker team.
I've been calling it an upset for the last 7 years.
Yeah, but then to go from calling it an upset to calling them a playoff contending team is quite a jump.
I think they're a playoff contending team. I just think right now they're seen as a team that won't make the playoffs, and that's why they're seen as an underdog against the Patriots. Yeah,
no, that's true. That makes. Although, in fairness, I see the Patriots potentially contending for playoffs, and if Mac Jones is a fantastic rookie and a contender for Rookie of the Year, I see him taking them there. But I wouldn't have them nailed on just yet. So that's why I say it's such a toss up for me between the Dolphins and the Patriots. But I think if you're right, I think the Dolphins might be slight underdogs, and I can see them turning it over. I mean, I think a lot of people's favorite upset of all time is the Dolphins upset on the Patriots, where Rob Gronkowski takes the worst angle on a tackle ever seen in the league. I don't understand why the Patriots decided Rob Gronkowski needed to play safety on that particular play. But we'll have to see.
I'm glad he did.
Yeah, I'm good. And if anyone's listening doesn't know what we're referring to, I think what is it? Miami Miracle? It's called on YouTube, something like that. Yeah, it's worth a watch. It's very exciting, especially if you set it to the Titanic music, and it makes it Even better.
I actually may watch that after this. After this, I might actually now watch that.
Get you hyped for work. My upset. I will close out with my upset because I don't know. It's in my upset. It's based entirely on one person, which is probably never a good thing when you're making a prediction. But I've got Washington beating the Chargers, and it's entirely based on Fitzmagic. Every time he goes to a new team, he sets it like he's I'm here to do things my way. This is my 1 gig game and I'm out. So I think he's gonna start the season well. He's got Terry McLaurin at running back. They're not a great team, but at the same time, there's not too much like they're missing. They're just sort of they've just got something average or worthwhile in each spot. So yeah, I've got Washington beating the Chargers. I also, on the flip side, I suppose I have a little bit more than just Fitzmagic. I have Justin Herbert and Austin Eckler being quite sort of young, fresh players to the league. Although I know Herbert did fantastically last season, I think it could be a sort of a thing where they started off young, but they're too amped up for this season, and as young players, they don't really start as strongly as they could. So that's why I have Washington beating the Chargers. But as I say, it's another one where it's not a huge amount of an upset because I don't know if both teams are that differently ranked, but that's sort of what I'd go for. And we had a nice preview of Connor's cat there.
Yeah, she's come outside and said hello, so I thought I'd say hello. But
show her to the camera.
We can have it be a thing where you got to show that you've watched the entire thing by trying to find my cat.
Yeah. Well, I think we've got some good picks there. We're going to come back. We'll probably, in terms of the games, we'll talk about them definitely next week. We'll say whether we were right, or we can talk about get Conor a bucket for tears when we're talking about Patriots sort of 50-0 to the Dolphins. 2 are out for the season. Jalen Waddle, 5 targets, no reception, sort of thing. We'll talk about all that.
Things that will make me sad.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, if that's gonna do us for this week. So a slightly shorter one we've been in the past because I don't think we haven't had quite as many hot debates. We've all been after last week. We've all been very kind to each other in terms of each other's picks. But yeah. So I think we'll end it off there. Thank you everyone for watching. We really hope you've enjoyed it. We've enjoyed making it. It's nice to sort of chat about, have these early season predictions and early week predictions that we can come back to next week and see how we've done. And of course, if you're listening to this and you've got a pick for the weekend, or you've got a MVP pick in mind that we haven't mentioned, do put it down in the comments, and we'll see it and we can chat about it next week. Maybe you'll spark one in our mind that we hadn't thought of. So if you're new to the channel, please do hit the subscribe button and make sure you don't miss a video. Like it if you've enjoyed it, and don't forget, as we mentioned at the beginning, to check out the merch, the new and improved merch. It's bye from me and bye from the guys, and we'll see you next week for our next episode. Bye, everyone.